Part 29. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Jonghu Buletin. Chapter 281. Xiao. How can you, a child, make up lies and lie to your parents? Where did grandpa say such things? How can you falsely accuse others like this? Xia's mother was really shocked. She usually did not avoid Xiao when talking to her husband. She also felt that Xiao was only 6 years old. What could a child listen to? Even if he heard them talking, he didn't know what they were talking about, but he didn't expect that Xiao actually wrote down all their words and told his youngest son. This was something Xia's mother never expected. She looked at her son with an unsightly expression, a bit flattering. Tingzhou, who in our Xia family doesn't know that you are the most powerful child in our Xia family, and the most promising, who can go to work in a big city, and have such a good wife? Your father and I are both happy. It's too late, how could you say such a thing? Besides, you have a very good relationship with your daughter-in-law, but no one in our hometown knows about your relationship with your daughter-in-law. This is a new era, and a child will follow his mother's surname. It's normal to follow your father's surname, but Xiao didn't know what kind of people said that you are the biological son of me and your father. How could we look down on our biological son? I'm afraid some people look down on us in their hearts, but in front of our children, what did you say? He was explaining hurriedly. Sometimes, the more people explain, the more they feel guilty. Moreover, Xia's mother not only explained, but even applied eye drops with some purpose. It's been less than a month since Xiaoyao came to our house. Your father and I haven't loved Xiaoyao properly yet. We haven't gotten too familiar with him yet. How can we teach Xiaoyao to say these things? This is just short of directly saying that Xiaoyao heard these embarrassing words about his son-in-law because of the Liang family. After all, a man often has a self-esteem that no one can imagine. Xia's mother often relied on this to provoke her. Although the son usually doesn't say anything, he has opinions about the Liang family in his heart. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get Xiaoyao back this time, so the son must have thoughts about the Liang family and would not blame himself as a mother. Mom, do you mean my family taught me this? Liang Chajun is not the kind of person who likes to speak ill of people behind their backs. He would settle everything on the spot. It was the same at this time. When he thought of his son being bullied at his father-in-law's house, her husband was even looked down upon, and Liang Chajun felt angry. Of course not, I'm just talking casually. What this kid says can't be taken seriously. Mother Xia quickly waved her hands, but she saw that her son's face still didn't look good, and she felt a little unhappy. She felt that her son didn't go down the ladder. Mom, my Xiaoyao never lies. Now that I'm back this time, I have to ask clearly whether what Xiaoyao said is true, whether the wound on Xiaoyao's face was caused by his father pushing him, and whether Xiaoyao's Y is the watch on Qingping. I heard what Qingping said. Qingping said this is his home. I want to see when the house my wife bought became my eldest brother's home. Xia Tingzhou directly refused to give Xia's mother face, which made Xia's mother feel a little annoyed. She felt that the younger son had really married into someone else's family. Now that he had a wife who had forgotten his biological father and mother, he was so angry that he became cold-faced. It's true that your wife bought this place, but she bought it for me and your dad. Even if your dad and I asked your brother to live here, what's wrong? You don't go home every year, and you take care of your dad and I's shortcomings. No, what's wrong with me asking your elder brother and sister-in-law to come and take care of us? It's fun to live together. Now you have a bad temper and are angry with me here. Xia's mother was angry, feeling that her son, who had always been obedient, had violated her will, but Xia Tingzhou was even more angry. Oh, this is the house Chujun bought for you and your father to live in, yes, but Mom, don't forget, my name is written on the property certificate of this house, and it is my house. Who do I want to live in? If I don't want anyone to live in it, I won't be able to live in it. What's wrong? If they live in my house and bully my son, why should I kowtow to them? Xie Zhou rarely behaved in such a sharp manner, which made Liang Chejun feel impressed. Ever since he met his husband Xie Zhou, his husband has always been very indifferent to everything, or in other words, he doesn't care about it. But now seeing her husband arguing with Xie's mother over their son, Liang Chejun suddenly felt that there was something different about such a husband. Dad, Xiao Yao didn't lie. Xiao Yao also heard Grandma say that Xiao Yao will live here from now on and will ask his father and mother for more money and then buy a house for Xie Qingping. I heard it all. Xiao Yao hugged his mother's neck. Now that he had someone to support him, he directly told what he had heard and seen during his return. In fact, there were many more, but Xiao Yao did not say it at this time. He thought the younger brother at home has bright eyes and looks a little depressed. Okay, Xiao Yao, Dad already knows, Dad will stand up for Xiao Yao. Xie Zhou reached out and rubbed his son's soft hair, then looked at Liang Chejun who was holding him. Sorry. Liang Chejun understood what he was talking about and shook his head. It's not your problem. No one expected that such a good child would be bullied after being sent to his grandparents' home. Not to mention Xie Zhou, Liang Chejun also did not expect it, because although they quarreled over the child being sent back, when Xie Yao came back, Liang Chejun but I gave Xie's parents 50,000 yuan. In order to prevent his son from being wronged, the boss also worked very hard, completely unaware that a person could be biased to a degree that would make people feel weird. Seeing that her son ignored her and even threatened her with the house, Xie's mother was extremely angry, but she didn't know how to deal with this son, so she could only say angrily. Yes, this is your real estate certificate. What's wrong? You still want to kick me and your dad out? Okay, I'll go back and tell your dad to take me out quickly. It's best to die outside. Make you happy. She dragged Xie Qingping, who was still crying, towards the house. Even though Xie Qingping was always loved, he now understood that Grandma seemed unable to do anything to that good-looking man. She didn't know why, but Xie Qingping was a little scared. Let's go in too. I also want to ask my dad what it means. Xie Zhou and Liang Chejun also walked in. Xie Yao obediently hugged his mother's neck and stopped talking. After waiting inside, Xie's mother angrily threw her temper at the nanny. If we don't call the old man over quickly, our son will kick us out. Her strange words were actually talking about Xie Zhou. In the past, the Xie family was happy because of such a good-looking son with good academic performance. Compared with the eldest son, he went to school and worked earlier, and the younger son thanked him. How embarrassed the parents were, but after going to college instead of going back to their hometown to find a job, getting married, and having children under their noses, they just became a son-in-law. Even if the Liang family is indeed rich and can appear on TV shows, when they think that their son, who has been raised well for so many years, will marry each other like his daughter, and will live with his parents after getting married, the Xie family will have a long time ago. They were already very resentful. Even if they asked Xie Zhou and Liang Chejun for money all day long, they still felt that this was what they should do. I raised a son well, but finally made a living and married into someone else's family. Although I didn't change my surname, my daughter-in-law gave birth to a pair of twins, one with the surname Xie, but Xie's father and Xie's mother still felt uncomfortable, even if no one in the village knew about this, but the two of them just felt inferior. What's more, Father Xie's name has the same name as Father Liang. One is called Liang Kuoxiang and the other is called Xie Yongxiang. Both of them are Xiang, but one is an ordinary worker in the factory, and the other is a big boss with a big group in his hands. Later, when the couple went to Shangjing City to meet their in-laws for the first time, the Xie family couple met the Liang family couple and felt that they really couldn't hold their heads high. In the past, Xia's mother thought that if her son was so outstanding, many women would be willing to help him. She would be able to choose a daughter-in-law that she wanted, and then she could buy a car and a house, and she could also take care of the couple's daily life. After all, her son was so outstanding and good-looking. It looks good, what woman wouldn't want to flip it? But now all the wishes have come true. The house has been given to the daughter-in-law and the money has been given, but the son has become someone else's son-in-law. He is in Shangjing City every year. He can't even touch him, let alone his son-in-law. I want to teach my daughter-in-law a lesson, but the Liang family has a big mountain pressing on them. How dare Mother Xia do it? This is probably what many mothers who raise sons think in their hearts. Even if they raise a leprosy, they still feel that there will be many swans willing to take advantage of them, thinking that they will take good care of their daughter-in-law in the future, but the daughter-in-law Menlin is too. If you are too high, you can't control it, and you will feel less and less favorable. Xia Tingzhou ignored Xia's mother's weirdness. He understood the couple's thoughts. They just felt that it was embarrassing for their outstanding son to marry into another family. Although Xia Tingzhou not only did not change his name to Liang, but one of his sons also took the surname Xia, but after Xia's father in Xia's mother's eyes, as long as this outstanding son agreed to marry into the family, he would be someone else's child. From then on, the Xia family only had an heir like the eldest son, so Xia Tingzhou was not being used to plunder wool. After all, in the eyes of the Xia family and his wife, Xia Tingzhou married Liang Chejun because of his beauty, so what's wrong with them, as their natal family, asking for some money? That's why they confidently asked Liang Chejun for money behind Xia Tingzhou's back. This kind of mentality is probably like when a daughter gets married and naturally feels that the son-in-law has taken advantage of him, so he should give them some compensation. Even Xia Yao, who also had the same surname as Xia, was obviously their grandson, but he was excluded from the Xia family. Thinking that the original owner later killed his wife, father-in-law, mother-in-law, and young son, and took control of the Liang group, when the Xia family licked their faces and wanted to join them, the original owner also turned his back and refused to recognize anyone. Xia Tingzhou felt that this family was nothing. Good stuff. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 282. After entering the house, Liang Chejun saw the shoes scattered randomly outside the shoe cabinet. Some of the styles inside were not worn by people of Xia's father's age. They were for men, women, and children. He could tell at a glance that his son was probably talking about. It's true that Xia Tingzhou's brother also lives in the house he bought. Just when I was listening to Xia's mother being angry, the nanny had already called someone, but it was not just one person who came over. It was Xia's father and Xia Tingzhou's eldest brother Xia Tingyu. Speaking of which, this family is strange. Xia's father and Xia's mother look like Xia Tingyu can only be regarded as ordinary. Xia Tingyu looks very similar to Xia's father. On the contrary, Xia Tingzhou, who is not very good looking, does not look like the child of the Xia family, but looks like a mutation. However, this kind of thing also happens. Xia Tingzhou remembers that the original owner secretly used his parents' hair to test DNA when he was a child, because he thought he looked so good. In addition, he read some literary works at that time and wondered if he had been stolen by his parents. The child, maybe his noble parents are waiting for him, but the final result is of course disappointing. Xia Tingzhou is the biological son of the Xia family, and his good looks are just a kind of genetic mutation. There are some sudden gifts from God in this world. It is normal for parents to be dull and their children to be smart, or for parents to be ugly and their children to be beautiful. Brother, why are you back? You didn't say hello to me so I could drive to pick you up. Xia Tingyu looked at his younger brother with a smile. He didn't know why Xia Tingzhou suddenly came back, but his face was still full of smiles. And looked at his sister-in-law Liang Chejun. Sister-in-law, I didn't expect you to come back. Aren't you busy with work in Beijing? Do you still miss Xiao Yao? Don't worry, Xiao Yao's parents are taking good care of him at home. He just said good things to his parents. Xie Tingyu was actually in Xie Tinghu's favor. He learned to repair cars after school. Although he was dirty, he still made money. After he found a wife, he lived an ordinary life. Wait. When Xie Tingzhou got married, Xie Tingzhou knew that they planned to rent a shop to use as a car repair shop. The location there was not expensive, so Liang Chejun gave him 10 years of rent. It was not that he would not buy it for Xie Tingyu, but Liang Chejun always believed that teaching people how to it is better to teach people to fish than to fish, so long-term development is suitable for the Xie family's situation. Even if the rent for 10 years was about hundreds of thousands a year, it ended up costing more than 1 million. After adding some money for decoration later, it came down to almost 2 million. What? Brother, you don't welcome me back. If I don't come back, my son will be beaten to death in my house and I won't even know. Xie Tingzhou looked at the man in front of him with a sneer, knowing that the Xie family and his wife had asked them for what they wanted all these years. Where did the money go? After all, his son was married off. From now on, the Xie family thought that they would rely on their eldest son to support them in old age, so they naturally subsidized them in every possible way. Where did the money come from? Naturally, I took it from Xie Tingzhou. If they were too embarrassed to ask Xie Tingzhou for it, they would just call Liang Chejun. Anyway, the Liang family was a big group and they had plenty of money. A little bit from their fingers would be enough for them to spend. Little brother, what are you talking about? I don't know what's wrong with you today. You have such a bad temper. What can you say? My parents are both here, why should I be so arrogant? My parents are always against Xiao Yao. Very good. At this time, Xie Qingping had been taken away by the nanny and coaxed, so the boss Xie Tingyu didn't know that his son was slapped by his younger brother. If he knew, he would probably blame Xie Tingzhou. Xie Tingzhou said nothing and looked at his father. Father Xie looked very calm when he met his younger son. He knew what the younger son was making was nothing more than scars on his grandson's face, so he spoke with a cold face. Tingyu, you don't have to say anything. Your brother is blaming me for not taking good care of his son. Xiao Yao snatched things from Qingping before. He doesn't know how to be humble at such a young age. He has been taught bad things a long time ago. I accidentally pushed him. Children can recover quickly wherever they hit. What's wrong? Your brother blames me for such a small thing. Your brother has been pulling you up, and now he has become a useless person, and is still being blamed by his son. He has always been like this, not allowing anyone to threaten his rights. Just like when Xie Tingzhou got married before, he only met the Liang family once. The deep distance between the two families made Xie's father feel extremely uncomfortable. Later, Xie Tinghu's wedding was held in Shangjing City. He pretended to be sick and didn't even attend his son's wedding. Later, the Liang family also asked the Xie family if they wanted to return to their hometown for the wedding. However, Xie's father refused because he did not want to see the Liang family, especially Liang Qiuxiang. The two were about the same age, but one was the chairman of a large group. Even if it was the mayor who wanted to address everyone respectfully when he saw him. One of them was just a commoner, but the fact that he had the same name made Father Xie extremely jealous. After knowing that Liang's father only had one daughter, Liang Chejun, the only reason why Xie's father felt that he had defeated the other party was that in this life, Liang's father only had one daughter, who didn't even have a root. When he died, there would be no descendants to visit his grave. Unlike him, he still had few children in his life. He only had the eldest son Xie Tingyu, the youngest son Xie Tingzhou, and an unsatisfactory daughter Xie Yun. At least until he died, Xie's father felt that he would always have more incense than Liang's father. Later, after his son got married, he stayed in Shangjing City and never came back. Although he complained about the other party in his heart, he also breathed a sigh of relief. When he saw the resolute daughter-in-law, Father Xie thought of Liang Qiuxiang and felt bad. Xie Tingzhou looked at this old man who was relying on his old age to live up to his old age. If he was the original owner, he would probably have seen through the old man's intention and would not expose it or make trouble look bad. But Xie Tingzhou was different. He was here to cause trouble. Thinking that the cheerful 6-year-old child was directly raised by the couple to become an autistic and gloomy person, and finally committed suicide, Xie Tingzhou couldn't control himself when he thought of what the other person had gone through. He walked forward. No one expected what he was going to do. Even Xie Tingyu, as the eldest brother, did not think that this face-conscious younger brother would dare to say anything to his father. But no one expected that Xie Tingzhou would just do it instead of saying anything. When he came to the old man, Xie Tingzhou slapped him across the face, so that Xie's father, who was relying on his old age, did not react at all. Then his face was swollen from the slap, and there was even blood on his mouth. This scene also frightened everyone. Xie Tingyu hurriedly stepped forward to block his father, looking at Xie Tingzhou in shock. "Tingzhou, what are you doing? These days, fathers beat their sons. How can a son beat his father?" Xie Yongxiang was completely stunned after being beaten. He couldn't say a word, his heart was twitching with anger, and his face was red. He didn't know whether it was from being beaten or from shame. "Oh, my old man. Who is this? He's beating his own father." Xie's mother also rushed over and supported her wife. Even Liang Chujun was stunned. After realizing it, he quickly covered his son's eyes, not wanting his son to see this scene. After all, parents are the most important thing for children. Good teacher, if your son sees this and remembers it, it will be a problem in the future. As for Xie Tingzhou, he would not regard this man as his father at all, and the Xie Yongxiang in his memory was not very useful. The original owner was good-looking and good at studying, and became the pride of the Xie family, but the Xie family invested very little. The original owner had scholarships since junior high school, but they were secretly taken away by the Xie family every time. Later, when he lived in high school and secretly applied for a bank card, he had money. After that, he went to college all the way with scholarships. Otherwise, why would the original owner? "I went to school until I was 28, but I just didn't want to go home." In the Xie family, the original owner's beauty and excellence were also the reason why he was oppressed. As for the money taken away by the Xie family, it was all subsidized to Xie Tingyu. Even when Xie Tingyu got married, her daughter Xie Yun was sold in exchange for a bride price of 300,000 yuan. It may seem cruel to say this, but the Xie family married Xie Yun to a man 10 years older than Xie Yun in order to get the 300,000 yuan gift for their son's marriage. "Dad, I'm calling you Dad for the last time today. You said you could just push Xiao Yao casually and the scar on Xiao Yao's face would heal immediately. Doesn't it hurt? Doesn't it hurt when the wound heals? I told you, I have only 2 children, Xiao Yao and Ziyan, in this life. No one can bully them, not even my own parents. I tell you, when I was a child, you secretly stole my scholarship and beat me if you didn't want me to go to school. Do you think I forgot if I didn't come back these years? I thought you really wanted to be nice to Xiao Yao, but you still want to beat Xiao Yao. Xiao Yao, I will fight back. I will fight too." Xie Tingzhou acted very impulsively, unlike before in front of everyone. He frightened Xie's father and mother so much that they didn't dare to move. Even Xie Tingyu didn't expect his brother to be so angry. Liang Chujun now understood why her husband had always been indifferent to everything before. It turned out to be because he had been hurt in the family since he was a child. Now that he saw his son being bullied, he couldn't control his emotions and felt very distressed. Xie Yao secretly held her mother's hand and took a peek. When she saw her father quarreling with her grandparents and even beating them because of her, she felt that her father was so powerful. Dad must love him very much, otherwise he wouldn't hit him. When he goes back, he must tell his brother that his father loves them very much and cares about them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Jonghu Buletinjian. Chapter 283. Everyone lives in an era of loving fathers and filial sons. Everyone is taught to be filial to their parents since birth. Filial piety and obedience are connected together, which is education. However, many parents do not have the ability to be parents at all. They give birth to children, and then they raise them casually. They teach them to be filial to themselves, which actually means that they let them obey themselves and cannot resist. They completely forget that the father must be loving first, and then the children will be filial. Xietingzhou was fortunate that the original owner was a face-saving person and never exposed these trivial matters in front of Liang Chajun. He originally thought that the family background between the two was somewhat tired, and exposing the suffering he had suffered seemed to make people look down on him even more. Some people in this world are like this. They are proud and inferior. They are proud of their achievements and enjoy the envious eyes of everyone, but they are inferior from the bottom of their hearts. Everything they have experienced since childhood has formed his character. The reason why the original owner is so cruel is also closely related to the couple in front of him. Xie's parents have always favored Xie Tingyu since he was a child. Although there are 3 children in the family, Xie Tingzhou is the second child. He and the third child Xie Yun are not liked by Xie's parents. It was not until Xie Tingzhou showed his excellence and could turn these excellence into money that he was valued by his parents. Before getting the scholarship, Xie's father and mother would always curse Xie Tingzhou, and even beat him when they were angry. They were happy when others praised Xie Tingzhou for his good looks, but they would get angry because of some words behind others. Especially every time they heard people say that Xie's father and mother looked so inconspicuous, but they gave birth to such a good-looking child, they really felt more uncomfortable. Obviously, it was his son, but people around him said that the child looked different from himself and his wife. If he hadn't been there when his wife gave birth in the hospital, Xie's father would have doubted it. So the Xie family naturally preferred Xie Tingyu, who looked similar to Xie's father. This is the bad nature of people. Growing up in such an environment, the original owner's pride and greed, inferiority and arrogance mixed together, creating an evil soul. And now Xie Tingzhou has completely given up the soul and faces such parents in his own way. To be honest, Xie Tingzhou feels that he is a person who doesn't like to think. What's the problem? Just beat him up. In the end of the world, if someone makes trouble, just beat him up. In the ancient world, if someone makes trouble, just kill the 9 clans. Even in the modern world, Xie Tingzhou is still adhering to the habit of never staying overnight if there is a grudge, and he is absolutely quick to act. What a gentleman's revenge is not late for 10 years, for Xie Tingzhou, it is useless, he just wants to take revenge on the spot. Thinking of Xie Yao's future in this family, not only being beaten, cursed, and abused, but even being molested because of his good looks, all this, even if it didn't happen, still makes Xie Tingzhou unacceptable, which is why Xie Tingzhou beat Xie Qingping right away. In his memory, Xie Yao grew up here. He was very short due to long-term malnutrition during adolescence, but because he looked good like a girl, he was molested by Xie Qingping. The Xie family turned a blind eye to this matter in order to conceal it. The original owner also hated Xie Yao, a child who was like his own dark wound, and finally chose to watch the child die. So Xie Tingzhou would not let Xie Qingping's family go, nor would he let Xie Tingzhou go, even if they were related to the original owner by blood, but that was with the original owner, and had nothing to do with him, Xie Tingzhou. He still liked these two children very much, and his wife was not bad. Such a peaceful life was still very comfortable for Xietingzhou. Xie's father finally reacted, covering his face and looking at Xietingzhou standing there in front of him. The 35-year-old Xietingzhou was 1.8 meters tall, and he felt very oppressive. He pointed at Xietingzhou with a trembling hand. "You beast! You beast, dare to hit me for the little beast you gave birth to. Do you know that I am your father? You dare to hit me even if it means you are the king of heaven? If you have the guts, keep hitting me. I want to see if you dare." Wow! This was the first time that Xietingzhou heard someone actively invite someone to be beaten. He sneered. "I am a beast, so the one who gave birth to me is also a beast. So what if you are my father? You deserve it for hitting my son, right?" Xietingzhou pushed Xietingyu away and slapped him again, hitting Xie's father directly on the sofa. The loud slap was terrifying. Mother Xie didn't react at all. She could only cry and hug her husband's arm. Xietingyu was pushed away and was also stunned for a moment. Then she reacted the next moment. Her brother dared to hit his father. "Xietingzhou, I think you are crazy." Xietingyu finally couldn't control himself this time. He couldn't just watch his father being beaten. He rushed towards Xietingzhou directly. This was the result Xietingzhou wanted. Facing Xietingzhou, who rushed over, Xietingzhou punched him. How many people had he met? How many ways did he have to kill people? How could he let Xietingyu get to him? So Xietingyu was hit by a punch and his brain went blank. Then he felt a rusty taste in his mouth. He spit to the side and actually spit out 2 teeth. His brain was buzzing and Xietingzhou punched him in the abdomen again. "And you? Your son actually dares to call my son a jerk. You even want my son to be your son's dog. You don't even know who you are, and you dare to bully my son." Xietingzhou punched and kicked Xietingyu without hesitation. Xie's mother didn't dare to stop her even if she wanted to. She had never seen her son fight before. She wanted to kill Xietingyu and kick Xietingyu directly. Vomited blood. Although Liang Chujun felt that her husband seemed to be severely stimulated and acted excessively, her husband was doing it for his son and their family, so Liang Chujun did not stop him, but just covered his son's eyes to prevent him from seeing her husband beating someone. Picture. "Don't learn from your father's beatings, you know." She said this, but Xie Yao was no longer a child. He had already heard that his father was beating people for him, and he immediately felt that his father was his hero. "I will definitely grow up well, eat a lot of food, and grow taller than my father. If someone bullies my parents in the future, I will help my parents fight." I don't know that Xietingzhu's behavior planted a seed of violence in Xie Yao. Later, when he grew up, he tended to use force to solve problems. Compared with his younger brother who had 800 thoughts, he was completely incompetent. However, for his younger brother, Xie Yao did not just stop fighting with people. Father Xie was extremely angry when he saw his younger son beating his elder son like this. Even though his face hurt badly, he still wanted to regain his dignity as a father. "Xietingzhou, how dare you hit your elder brother? Let me tell you. I won't let it go just like this when you hit me today. I want to find the police. I want reporters to expose you. Let everyone know that you are an unfilial son. How can I beat you?" At this time, Xie's father was going crazy. He wanted to make trouble with Xietingzhou, and he didn't care that the family scandal would be publicized, so he wanted to call the police and have his son arrested. As a result, as soon as Father Xie took out his cell phone tremblingly, Xietingzhou snatched it away. "Dad. This is my house. If you want to call the police, you should listen to me, right? Just as you did to my son, you should also do to yourselves. Why did I hit my elder brother today? He knew it in his heart. He wanted to rob me. He has so many things, but he has been locked up in a small dark room. Now he is living in my house. Do you think I don't know? Xie Zhou just threw the phone to the ground and watched it fall apart before he laughed and said, "I've always been a retributive person. Mom and Dad, why did you lock Xiao Yao away from eating before? Now go find a house and lock yourself in. Otherwise, I will find the property of this house now and take out my real estate certificate, kick you all out, and by the way, my brother's car repair shop was also rented with the money we gave you. If you don't obey, I will take it back." Xie Zhou began to settle the accounts step by step. Looking at the ugly faces of the Xie family couple and boss Xie in front of him, he added, "After I get married and start working, I will give you 10,000 yuan a month. My wife will also give you 10,000 yuan a month. You can check the bank statements. I can definitely say that these things are loans. Find a lawyer and sue you. These are coming back, parents. You also know what my wife does at home. With so many assets, there are naturally many means. It only takes a minute to deal with you. If you don't obey now, I can only if my wife takes action. My wife and father-in-law will no longer be so gentle. If they know that my son has been bullied like this, what do you think they will do?" Xie Zhou raised a banner to threaten these people. Liang Chujun on the side not only didn't think there was a problem, but actually felt good about her husband using the name of the Liang family for the first time. She, Liang Chujun's son, was bullied like this, and she didn't want to be casual. Just swallow the bitterness casually. The Xie family was originally afraid of the Liang family, and the Liang family's tens of billions of assets were enough to make them pay the price, so they were very scared at this time, and they resented Xie Zhou but did not dare to show it. In the end, the three of them were forced by Xie Zhou to Guan Xie Yao's warehouse. It was a warehouse of less than 10 square meters with nothing in it. After sending the three of them inside, Xie Zhou looked at his parents with a smile and added, "Mom and Dad, don't worry. I know that when I joined the Liang family, you all despised me and felt that Xie Yao was not a child of the Xie family. In this case, I don't think it is necessary to keep the surname. When I return to Beijing this time, Xie Yao just use my father-in-law and mother-in-law's surname, and I will never embarrass the Xie family again." Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 284. Everything Xie Zhou did fell into Liang Chujun's eyes, which made Liang Chujun have a different view of this husband who was always silent. You know, the original owner has always been aloof in front of Liang Chujun, and is neither cold nor warm to everyone, not to mention his wife, father-in-law, mother-in-law and children, even his biological parents, are also neither cold nor warm to get along, nothing more than looking down on them. For such parents who are not good looking and drag themselves down, and even steal their scholarships, the original owner hates and looks down on them, otherwise he would not secretly do some DNA tests to determine his identity, so he disdains to talk to such stupid parents. Then there is Liang Chujun. He actually likes Liang Chujun too. After all, Liang Chujun is good looking and excellent, but Liang Chujun's family background is too good, so good that the original owner is jealous. Obviously, she is a girl, but she can have all the resources of the Liang family, unlike the original owner, who was beaten and scolded in the Xie family, and finally paved the way for her unpromising elder brother Xie Tingyu. As for the Liang family's parents, they were not her own parents, so she didn't care. The original owner was actually jealous of the two children. She was jealous that Liang Xian could inherit the Liang family. Just a surname would directly change Xie Yao's life in the future. He watched all this with a cold eye, and the inferiority and pride in his heart kept pulling. He never got so emotional, so this time, his behavior really made Liang Chujun look at him with new eyes. People who do business are unscrupulous, and Liang Chujun himself is even more resolute. Now seeing her husband's behavior towards his family, although she felt a little extreme, It was the first time she saw the unique bloodiness of Xie Tingzhou. Her husband usually didn't like to say anything, and he didn't have any ideas because of his status as a son-in-law, let alone want to join the Liang group. He treated the two children equally, as if he was a false perfect husband and perfect husband. But now, Liang Chejun suddenly felt that Xie Tingzhou was a person. His true self was exposed in Liang Chejun's eyes. Although he was sharp and might make others disgusted, Liang Chejun liked him very much. "Dad. Hug me. I love you so much." Xie Yao happily reached out his hand to his father. He used to stick to his mother Liang Chejun more when he was at home. Now he has been wronged for a month. Although he would cry secretly at night, he was so happy to see his father avenge him. His smiling face was so cute. "Okay, Dad, come and hug Xiaoao now." Xie Tingzhou walked over, hugged the son in his wife's arms, and then was hugged by his son and kissed on the cheek enthusiastically. "Dad, you are really awesome. Just like Ultraman. You beat away all the monsters." In the heart of any child, Ultraman is probably the eternal king. Now Xie Tingzhou, who stands up for Xie Yao, has become Ultraman in his son's heart. As for those who bully him, they are all big monsters. Anyway, they were all beaten away by his father. Does Xiaoao like his father? Xie Tingzhou also turned his head and kissed the cute little guy. The child's face was very tender. Seeing the wound on it, Xie Tingzhou was not in a good mood. I like it very much. I like daddy and mommy. Xie Yao is like this. He can't hide anything. He is a child without thoughts. Unlike his younger brother Liangxian, this is probably the child's personality and education method. Liangxian will be the heir of the Liang group in the future. Naturally, he will be carefully taught by the Liang couple, but Xie Yao is destined to have none of these, so his personality is more lively and cheerful. Does the injury on your face hurt now? Can mommy and daddy take you to the hospital to deal with it? Xie Tingzhou coaxed his silly son. Thinking that this silly son had no brains, but had a face as beautiful as his, no wonder he was bullied. Okay, when Xie Yao heard that he was going to the hospital, he couldn't help doubting. He wanted to say no, but seeing his parents' worried look, he still agreed obediently. At this moment, the nanny came over. She had coaxed Xie Qingping to sleep. She didn't know the situation outside. After coming out, she was also stunned when she saw Xie Tingzhou and Liang Chejun. "This house is my house. You are the nanny, right? My parents are resting first. You can rest for a week and come back to work after a week. Your salary will be paid normally," Xie Tingzhou said. The nanny was a little unsure. Xie Tingzhou showed her the property certificate directly. The nanny said nothing and turned away. After everyone left, Xie Tingzhou handed his son to Liang Chejun. "Take the child out first, I will follow you out immediately." Seeing that her husband seemed to want to do something, Liang Chejun did not ask, but just left with her son in her arms. And Xie Tingzhou went directly to the so-called Xie Qingping's room. The room was full of toys that he had given his son before, expensive airplane models and various Lego, and the watch on Xie Qingping's hand, which was disgusting. Xie Tingzhou took off the watch directly, then dragged Xie Qingping to the small room where the Xie family was, and then threw the child in. "If you don't want the Xie family to fall into the fire pit, I think you should just stay here and don't move. I will lock you up for as long as you lock up my son. If you call the police, that's fine too. I will take my house back and sue you for extortion and child abuse. I think my son's injuries are minor, enough to send you all to jail." He threatened the Xie family in front of him. He actually knew that the injuries on Xie Yao's body were nothing, but he understood the Xie family. The Xie family had only dared to ask for money secretly for so many years because they were timid. They were frightened. What's the fun in punishing them directly? It's to let them all experience what they did to others and let them live in fear. The Xie family wanted to say something, but Xie Tingzhou closed the door directly, shutting out their voices. He was holding the watch that was supposed to belong to his son, but suddenly he received a voice call. Nowadays, children's voice watches are very powerful, and some even have video functions and positioning functions. The initiator of this voice call was no one else. It was none other than the youngest son Liang Xian. Xie Tingzhou chose to answer the call without hesitation, and heard the happy voice of his youngest son over there. "Brother, brother, you answered the phone." Liang Xian's cute little voice came over, making Xie Tingzhou couldn't help but laugh. "I'm not a brother, I'm a father." As soon as these words came out, Liang Xian fell silent. His little head never thought that the person over there was his father, but he still spoke obediently. "Dad, why are you holding my brother's phone number? I have been unable to get through my brother's phone before. Does my brother not want me anymore?" Since his brother left home, Liang Xian has made several cell phone calls every day. After all, they are twins, so they have a certain understanding of each other. When his brother is uncomfortable, Liang Xian feels uncomfortable and will cry. Now he hears his father's voice. Ask quickly. "No, Dad is with brother now. Brother's watch is broken. Dad wants to buy a new watch for your brother. You can see him in a few days. Dad is taking brother home." Xie Tingzhou coaxed the child, and Liang Xian's voice suddenly became excited when he heard it. "Dad. Brother, are you going home? Then I'll wait for you at home. Dad is great. Can I talk to brother?" Children are so easy to coax. Although Liang Xian feels that his father does not love him as much as his mother, he does not stop him from being cute. "Okay, I'll go out with my watch and let you talk to your brother." The watch was not hung up. Xie Tingzhou came out with the watch. Liang Chejun and Xie Yao were waiting in the car. When he got in the car, they handed over the watch. "Brother called you. Talk to him quickly. He misses you." Xie Yao's eyes lit up when he heard it was his younger brother. "Brother, brother, I am the brother, can you hear me?" Xie Yao happily talked to his brother and took back his watch. Liang Chejun glanced at her husband and seemed to know what his husband was doing, but he didn't ask any more questions. "I can hear you. Brother, I miss you so much. Do you miss me?" Liang Xian is only 6 years old this year. He and his brother are twins. The two of them stick together all day long and wear exactly the same clothes. Suddenly separated from his brother, Liang Xian is very unhappy. Now that he knows that his brother is coming home, naturally he was very happy, holding his cell phone and talking constantly. "Brother, I miss you so much, I miss you so much." Xie Yao also kept saying all kinds of good things from his mouth. The two little kids chatted all the way in the car until they got to the hospital before hanging up the phone. Then Liang Xian couldn't be happier. While Xie Yao was taking medicine in the hospital, Liang Xian had already skipped to her grandmother's side. That's right, Liang Xian and Xie Yao both called the Liang family husband and wife grandparents, not grandpa and grandma. "Grandma. My brother is coming back soon. My brother's cell phone couldn't be connected before because it was broken. Dad went to repair my brother's cell phone and said he would buy new ones for me and my brother. Mom is also here." She happily shared the news with her grandma. When Liang's mother Huang Shutong heard it, she understood that her daughter and son-in-law were probably going to her son-in-law's hometown to pick up the child, so she felt relieved. Although Xie Yao's child was not the heir of the Liang family, that was their favorite little grandson was sent to his son-in-law's hometown before. Father Liang and Mother Liang were not happy and turned cold-shouldered with Xie Tingzhou. Later I found out that my daughter had a quarrel with her son-in-law because of this, and the two of them had no choice. Now that she heard that her daughter and son-in-law were bringing her grandson back, Mother Liang suddenly laughed. "That's great. When your brother comes back, Grandma will take you to the amusement park and buy you new clothes, okay? Father Liang and Mother Liang are identical in material terms to the two children. Although one of the two children is the future heir of their Liang group, they will not favor anyone materially. Xiaoyao and Liang Xian are twins, the closest brothers in the world. Father Liang and Mother Liang don't want these two children to turn against each other. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 285. During the examination at the hospital, child Xiaoyao was praised by the doctors and nurses. They all said that the child was so strong and did not cry when taking the medicine. Child Xiaoyao was very proud of this. When I grow up, I want to be Ultraman and fight monsters. Ultraman is not afraid of taking medicine. He was dancing happily, which was so cute that it made Liang Chujun and Xie Tingzhou laugh. The doctors and nurses were also happy, and the nurse even gave him a lollipop. After examination, the doctor said that the injury on Xiaoyao's face was not a big problem and that the child's recovery ability was pretty good. As long as he took medicine regularly after returning home and applied scar removal medicine regularly, he would be fine. It just took time. A little longer. After all, this wound was not treated with medicine at the beginning, so it is a bit difficult to treat. It still needs more observation in the future. Hearing this, Liang Chujun didn't look very good, and Xie Tingzhou was not much better, but he was not afraid. After all, he had a system of miraculous doctors and son-in-laws. Sure enough, the next moment, I heard the mission of the miracle doctor's son-in-law system. The host is asked to show affection in front of the Xie family. The mission reward is a universal scar removal patch formula. How can a son-in-law not love his wife? Loving his wife and loving his son are the basic qualities of a son-in-law. Xie Tingzhou chose to take on this task. Sometimes, compared to the weird system, the system of a miraculous doctor and a son-in-law is not objectionable. After giving Xiaoyao medicine, the couple returned to Xie's house again. On the way, Xiaoyao fell asleep due to exhaustion, so they had their own space. I may have to stay in my hometown to deal with things in the next week. Do you want to take your son home first? Xie Tingzhou asked his wife beside him. After all, the Liang family must have known the news and were looking forward to Xiaoyao's return. Is it something about the Xie family? Liang Chujun hugged her son, looked at her husband aside, and lowered her voice. Tingzhou, I didn't know that the Xie family had treated you badly before. If I had known, I wouldn't have given them so many benefits, and I didn't expect that the Xie family would be so greedy that they would abuse Xiaoyao. I'm not worried about you staying here alone. How about I ask Mom to come and take Xiaoyao home, and I'll stay here with you to deal with the Xie family's affairs. It could be seen that her husband wanted to break away from the entire Xie family, so Liang Chujun was naturally afraid that her husband would be bullied again. Thinking that the scholarship her husband had earned so hard when he was young was stolen by the couple, Liang Chujun couldn't help but feel like it. Somewhat angry. That's okay, it's just troublesome for Mom. Xie Tingzhou nodded, but he didn't think this matter would take Liang Chujun away. Thinking of what he did today, he took a look at Xiaoyao in his wife's arms. It seems a little bad that I hit someone in front of Xiaoyao today, he said hesitantly, but Liang Chujun held Xie Tingzhou's hand with a comforting emotion. There's nothing wrong with it. Xiaoyao knows that you hit people because of him. You are the best father and the best Ultraman in his heart. In the past, I always felt that my husband was cold and indifferent to his two sons, but now seeing her husband getting so angry for his sons, Liang Chujun felt quite happy. But he added immediately afterwards. It's just that you are still a little impulsive this time. If you hit someone directly, you are afraid that the Xie family will leave a trace. I have already checked it. The Xie family does not have cameras. It is you who did this to your parents. If they call the police, I am afraid of the impact. Your Honor, so I stay and let's handle this matter without any impact. Liang Chejun always thinks of the worst scenario for everything. After all, this is how business is done. You can't always win. You need to anticipate your own failure in advance. The same is true for the Xie family's affairs. Okay, Chu Jun, have I told you before that the luckiest thing in my life is meeting you and the two children you gave birth to? It was rare for Xie Tingzhou to be so emotional. There was a bit of dependence in such gentle words, and it was the kind of feeling that made people want to protect him. This made Liang Chejun understand why he fell in love with such a person at first sight. It's probably because of the loneliness in Xie Tingzhou that makes people want to protect him. She could actually see Xie Tingzhou's inferiority complex, but she tried her best not to make him feel uncomfortable. Now that she saw this man finally opening his heart to her, Liang Chejun was naturally happy. I'm lucky to have you, too. The two adults didn't know that while they were talking about their love, a sleeping child secretly opened his eyes and heard his parents confessing to each other. He was so happy that he planned to share it with his younger brother later. She said she loves her mother very much, and she also loves her father and them very much. Soon the car arrived at Xie's house. After entering Xie's house, Xie Yao woke up, and Xie Tingzhou asked some questions about Xie Yao's abuse, including but not limited to taking away toys, locking him in a dark room, depriving him of food, etc. And why don't my grandparents give me a bath because I'm so dirty? They say I'm blind to cleanliness. Dad, can't I take a bath? It was Xie Yao's habit to take a bath every 2 days. When he heard his son say that he hadn't taken a bath for almost a month, Xie Tingzhou was really angry, and Liang Chejun was also furious. The most important thing is that they went to the room where Xie Yao slept. Liang Chejun found that the 4-piece bed set he bought for his son was missing. It was a tattered 4-piece set that had been worn for an unknown number of years, and the 4-piece set he bought for his son was missing. It turned out to be on Xie Qingping's bed. Liang Chejun was so angry that he took out the 4-piece set on the bed and burned it. Liang Chejun was rarely so impulsive, but Xie Tingzhou just hugged his son and looked at his angry wife. Originally, I was going to drop my son's watch and buy a new one for him later, but Xian called me. When I got home, I threw away the watch and bought a new one for Xiao Yao. Okay. While comforting his wife and talking to his son, Xie Yao was very obedient and understood what his father meant. Okay, thank you Dad. Xie Qingping has worn this watch before, but I don't like it. When I go back, I will buy a new one of the same model with my brother. Growing up, Xie Yao and his younger brother Liang Xian had the same style. They each chose the same color for the same style of clothes. They both had the same toys. Even the New Year's money and various financial management were exactly the same. The Liang family will not be partial because Xie Yao is not the heir of the Liang family. After all, these two children are flesh and blood of the Liang family. Even if their surname is Xie, they were raised under their knees. How could the Liang family not like them? Okay, Dad goes back and buys it for you, and also buys new ones for my brother. Xie Tingzhou coaxed his son and saw his angry wife coming over after burning the 4-piece set and some toys, so he asked his son. Xiao Yao, after you return home this time, can your father change your surname? Previously, my brother has been named Liang after his mother. After he returns this time, can you also change his name to take his mother's surname? Then you can. It's called Liang Yao, doesn't it sound good? Both Xie Yao and Liang Yao sound very nice, and it doesn't matter to Xie Tingzhou. Inheritance is sometimes not proved by surnames, so Xie Tingzhou doesn't care whether his son has his surname. It was agreed back then that Xie Yao's surname would be Xie. It's already because Liang Chejun loves her too much. If this had been the case in ancient times, the man who married into his wife might have had to change his family name to the woman's family name. Liang Chejun also didn't expect that she would come over and hear such news after burning things, and was stunned for a moment. In fact, she felt that it would be best if Xie Yao could take her last name, Otherwise the two children would have nothing when they were young. When Xiaoyao grows up, he is destined not to inherit the Liang family's property because of his surname. The distance between the two brothers will become wider and wider, and there will probably be a gap between them. This is a mother's responsibility. Liang Chujun definitely didn't want to see it. Then if my brother and I both take our mother's surname, will my father have nothing? Although the child doesn't know what his last name represents, he also knows that one of his names is the same as his father, and his younger brother's name is the same as his mother. That's why Xiaoyao has such a problem. Dad still has you, dad has mom, mom is dad's, and you are mine and mom's. Even if you change your last name and are called Liang Yao, you are still dad's little baby, just like your brother. Xie Tingzhou said that he did not support the two surnames requested by the original owner, especially when the original owner had no assets. Even if the original owner did not get the golden finger and became bad, in the end the two brothers might still be separated because of the distribution of assets when they grow up. This leads to no contact again. This is human nature. Xiaoyao changed his name to Liang Yao and would have the same inheritance rights as Liang Xian. If Xie Tingzhou himself founded the company, the two children would still have the same inheritance rights. This would prevent the brothers from getting into trouble because of this in the future. That's good. I have the same surname as my brother, and the same surname as my mother. Xiaoyao nodded immediately. He actually thought of something, but didn't know how to say it, so he planned to go back and ask his brother. In Xiaoyao's heart, if there is anything that cannot be said to his parents, he can tell his younger brother. His younger brother is super smart and can definitely answer his questions. Liang Chujun felt a little happy when he heard that his son had agreed to the proposal, but he still looked at his husband and said, "Tingzhou, do you really plan to let Xiaoyao change his last name?" She still respects her husband, but Liang Chujun feels that the Xie family must have gone too far this time, making Xie Tingzhou sad. Well, in the eyes of the Xie family, I am also an outsider and a shameful child who got married. Why do I still keep this surname? Why don't you let Xiaoyao take your surname? At least my parents love Xiaoyao and Ziyan. I personally told my parents about this matter. I was stupid. I came up with the idea of letting Xiaoyao have my last name for the sake of my parents. Now that I think about it, my parents and you have tolerated me enough. Xiaoyao changed his last name. I hope my parents won't mind. The more Xie Tingzhou said this, the more Liang Chujun felt that her husband's heart was focused on his family, and he immediately shook his head. No, my parents will definitely be very happy. If Xiaoyao could be named Liang, my parents would laugh out of their dreams. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletinjian. Chapter 286. Liang Chujun's words are not nonsense. After all, the two children came out of his own belly and are both flesh and blood. As the only daughter of the Liang family, the children she gave birth to were naturally loved. Not to mention that Xie Tingzhou, as the son-in-law, Xiaoyao and Liang Xian's two children are as good-looking as fairy children. They both have the same grandparents. How can you not like them? It's just that the children are young now. Even when they were young, they had the same resources. But if they grow up and one of them suddenly discovers that the other will inherit the grown Liang group, I'm afraid the brothers will have objections. If both children are named Liang, both of them have the opportunity to inherit the Liang family, which is also good. At least Liang Chujun is sure that when he is managing the company, he will not allow the two children to have trouble with each other. That's good. Let me call my mother tonight and ask her to bring Xian over. Xian also misses his brother. Let the two children come here to play for a while. I will handle the Xie family's affairs. Xie Zhou nodded and agreed to the matter. Although Xie Yao didn't quite understand what his parents meant, he still understood that grandma and his brother were coming. He immediately happily hugged Xie Zhou's neck and kissed him again. "Dad, grandma is coming to see me with her brother, right? I can see my brother, right?" He was so happy that Xie Zhou also kissed his son's cheek and said, "Yes, my brother will be here soon. Are you happy?" Xie Yao was naturally happy, but as a result, he kissed and kissed her parents all over the rainbow. The way a child expresses love is very obvious, which is to stick to you in a very straightforward way. If you stick to you, you like you. After that, Xie Zhou and Liang Chejun still ask Xie Yao a lot of questions about the Xie family. The couple did not want to let go of the Xie family, especially Liang Chejun. When they thought about how their son had suffered so much after coming here for less than a month, it was simply unbelievable. It was extremely uncomfortable for her as a mother. And they don't seem to like Dad. They always say bad things about Dad. They say that Dad has gone to so many studies in vain, but in the end he still has to rely on his face to eat from women. Mom, what does it mean to eat from women? Children don't understand what eating soft food means, but they know that it is not a good thing. Liang Chejun really didn't expect that Xie Zhou's biological parents would talk about his son like this behind his back. In fact, even without her pursuit of Xie Zhou could still go to a good hospital after studying for a master's and doctoral degree at the medical university. In time, he would be a good hospital. A very good doctor, and this is also an excellent life in the eyes of many people. Regarding his son's words, Liang Chejun was speechless for a moment. Xie Zhou was very calm, as if he was not the one who was eating soft food, and said directly, "I eat my mother's food because my mother loves my father, and my father also loves my mother. It's like when my parents met for the first time. My father was still a student, but my mother was the leader of a group. At that time, my mother was giving a speech on the podium. I fell in love with my father at first sight because I saw how good looking he was. I also fell in love with your mother at first sight, so I got married. So it's not a bad thing that I like your appearance. You and your brother look alike. You are so beautiful, don't many classmates like you in kindergarten?" Talking gently to the child about his love with his wife was something the original owner had never said before. He thought it sounded too embarrassing for a man to lean on his face. And now, when Xie Zhou talked about this, his face was gentle, and Liang Chejun couldn't help but look at her husband. She didn't expect that it wasn't just herself who was interested in her, but her husband also fell in love with her at first sight. I had never known this before, but now I suddenly knew it, which made Liang Chejun feel soft in his heart. Yes, many classmates in the class like us and say that they want to marry me and my brother when they grow up. There are also boys. One boy gave his brother a diamond ring and said that he will marry him in the future. It must be because of me. If we look too good like my brother, others will like us. Xie Yao nodded obediently and talked about things in the kindergarten. The 6-year-olds were going to first grade after their summer vacation. In the kindergarten, Xie Yao and Liang Xian were the children's favorite little princes. Well, they look very handsome and cute every time they wear clothes, so many children want to marry these two. Xie Zhou and Liang Chejun dug out a lot of gold necklaces, diamond rings and other things from their two sons' school bags, and they were all real. Later, after contacting their parents, they found that the people giving them were boys and girls. It's dumbfounding. Yes, my grandparents scolded my father because he was too good looking and they were too ugly, so they were jealous of him. They said that his face made your mother fall in love with me, but he was very happy to have such a face. A face, because of this face, I can be with your mother. Xie Zhou unabashedly showed his affection in front of his son, and his son's eyes lit up when he heard it. On the contrary, Liang Chejun, as the person involved, was a little shy. After all, he was attracted by sex at first, and then pursued others, which really sounded like a gangster. Xie Tingzhou was the beautiful poor little beauty that Liang Chejun, a rich lady, fell in love with, but Liang Chejun spent money on her. Mom, is that true? Did Dad say that? Are you with Dad because you like his face? Xie Yao held her mother's hand and asked, completely unaware that her mother's ears were already red. Ahem, that's right. Because your dad is good looking, Mom fell in love with him right away. But it's also because your dad is a good person that we can fall in love and have babies like you and your brother. Your dad is a very good person. Liang Chejun said the words of praise to her husband awkwardly. When she looked at her husband's half-smiley eyes, she realized that she didn't seem to be so thick-skinned. Unlike her husband, she could say these weird things in front of her son without changing her face. Wow! Then I will find a good-looking person to marry in the future, just like Mom. Parents are the best teachers for their children. Xie Yao immediately made up his mind. If he finds someone he likes in the future, he will also find a good-looking person to marry like Mom finds Dad. Then give birth to a good-looking baby. This made Liang Chejun speechless, but it made Xie Tingzhou laugh. He pinched his son's cute little face and smiled. Dad supports you. You must find a good-looking person to marry in the future. It didn't say whether it was a boy or a girl. Anyway, as long as it was his son's choice, he would support it as a father. At this time, Xie Tingzhou's family was extremely warm, while in the small room that was originally used as a warehouse, the Xie couple looked unhappy, as well as Xie Tingyu and Xie Qingping, who cried after waking up. Xie Qingping cried loudly, and it seemed that he couldn't stop, because he woke up and found that his favorite watch was gone, so he cried loudly. Don't cry, it's so annoying. Xie's mother, who always loved Xie Qingping, scolded with a cold face, which made Xie Tingyu look unhappy, but she still hugged her son to comfort him. Qingping, don't cry, Daddy will buy you a new watch, okay? It was just that he had searched for the watch before, and a broken watch for a child actually cost 80,000 yuan, so Xie Tingyu turned a blind eye to the fact that his son took the watch. Anyway, what did Xie Tingzhou want after marrying Liang Chejun? 80,000 yuan was nothing to them. Well, Daddy must buy it for me. Xie Qingping nodded while crying, but he didn't know that his own father was also a little annoyed when he saw him like this. Xie Tingyu didn't know what happened to his brother. His brother was always quiet and obedient. Even if he asked for money, he would give it to him. How could it be as terrible as this time? And how did the other party suddenly come back, leaving them no time to prepare? And Xie Yao, that stinky boy, would complain at the age of 6. He was simply a dead child. He was in a very bad mood and didn't look at his father, whose face was already red and swollen. To be honest, Xie Tingyu was very jealous of his brother. They were obviously born to the same parents, but he inherited his father's unremarkable appearance. He was not good at studying and was not good in all aspects. From kindergarten to junior high school and high school, there were countless people who sent love letters and gifts to his brother, but Xie Tingyu could only find a partner through online dating, and he was not satisfied with it. Thinking that his brother could marry into a wealthy family directly with such a face, Xie Tingyu was jealous to death. What's wrong with men eating soft rice these days? If you want to live on someone's money, you have to be able to afford it. Thinking about how hard he worked to raise his children, and how exhausted he was every day, his younger brother could marry into a wealthy family with assets of tens of billions just by relying on his face. Every time he saw the news about the Liang family and the Liang group, Xie Tingyu felt that his heart was burning, especially when he saw that Liang Chejun was different from the rich woman in his memory. He became even more jealous. When he watched various videos, those rich women were all ugly, but Liang Chejun was a rich lady, and she was also a rich lady who owned the Liang group. She was good looking, had a good figure, good education, and was excellent in all aspects. They were all human beings, all children of the Xie family. Why did all these good lucks go to his younger brother, and he didn't get any? Since Xie Tingzhou got married and didn't go home, Xie Tingyu took his wife and son to live with his parents, under the pretext of being filial to his parents, and his parents really contracted the living expenses and subsidized them every year, which made Xie Tingyu feel a lot more comfortable. When Xie Yao came back this time, Xie Tingyu didn't like Xie Yao's face, which was almost exactly the same as Xie Tingzhu's when he was a child, so he watched coldly when his parents and son bullied each other, as if only in this way could his jealousy calm down. But Xie Tingyu knew clearly that Liang Chejun's family was rich and powerful, and it was as easy to deal with them as crushing an ant on the ground. Their family couldn't afford to offend them at all. So even if he felt uncomfortable, he still said, "Dad, this time my brother is eager to protect his son, please forgive him with great mercy, and tell him that he is sorry to Xiaoyao after you go out. What hatred is there between father and son? Tingzhou is just too impulsive. If he knew that you were so tolerant of him, he would definitely apologize to you. Good man, he has a golden finger." Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 287. This time Xie Tingzhu's behavior after coming back was really shocking. The entire Xie family couldn't believe that Xie Tingzhou would do such a thing. He even beat his father for the sake of his son. This was the biological father who gave birth to him. As a father, Xie Yongxiang certainly felt that his face was lackluster. At this time, he kept silent and did not talk to his eldest son. He was very angry. After hearing what her son said, Mother Xie felt that her eldest son was right. But when she thought of the terrifying look in her younger son's eyes, it seemed that he not only wanted to beat the old man, but also wanted to beat her. When she thought of the things that happened to her younger son when he was a child, wasn't it? Did you get your younger son's scholarship? We are all part of the family. What's wrong with taking it out when the family is in trouble? Why is a child from a family so ungenerous? He always holds on to the past and refuses to let go. He is simply not like a man. No wonder she got married. Xie's mother is full of complaints about Xie Tingzhou, but she doesn't want to offend her. Other side. Thinking that this 280 square meter house was bought by the younger daughter-in-law, and the name was in the son's name, if the younger son really wanted to do anything, they had no choice, so Xie's mother did not dare to say anything. As people get older and older, they have to rely on their children more and more. In this case, if the old people have no ability, they will naturally bow their heads in front of their children. Except for those old people who are already strong, most of the old people have to rely on their children. In the last stage of life, most of the time you have to look at the faces of your children. Old man, I know you are angry because of Tingzhou this time, but think about it, Tingzhou has not been home for so many years, and we are already estranged from each other as parents. After all, we finally gave birth to a pair of twins. When he arrived at our house, he felt uncomfortable when he saw Xiao Yao injured. It was inevitable that he would say something unreasonable. As a father, just be generous and forgive him once. He also got carried away for the sake of his child and became a parent. It was different before. Mother Xie thought for a while and then said, and then added, "How can this calf not be worthy of its mother? When we gave birth to these 3 children, except for the eldest son who listened to us 2 in a polite manner, the other 2 were stubborn cows and couldn't be pulled back at all. It's not like you don't you know? When Tingzhou went to college, you insisted that you couldn't pay for the tuition. After he finally went there, he was so angry that he didn't go home for several years. Did you forget that now that he has become successful and found a rich wife, you don't be like him, and relax, otherwise you will be the only one who feels uncomfortable?" While patting her husband's back and saying comforting words, Xie's mother has also looked away over the years. After giving birth to 3 children, her husband has been kind to the eldest son who looks most similar to her husband. As a wife, Xia's mother has also followed suit. The second child, Xia Tingzhou, just follows her husband's footsteps. The third child is a girl. Sooner or later, the water will be thrown out, so there is no need to hold it too much. Until now, no one expected that the most promising and richest child would be Xia Tingzhou, the second child they didn't like very much. Although this child was said to be having trouble with the family, the money was not given to him. Although he came to be a son-in-law, the house that was supposed to be bought for the two of them was also bought, and Xia's mother was still very satisfied. The two of them have a house, and with the money they got from Xia Tingzhou and his daughter-in-law Yang Chajun, they can not only support themselves, but also supplement their eldest son and grandson. They live a good life. As a result, the old man suddenly wanted to bring Xia Tingzhou's son back, and the result was like this. If he had known earlier, it would be better not to contact him and not bring the child back. It was really annoying to have such trouble. Xia Yongxiang listened to his wife's persuasion, but he seemed to be furious. As a man and a father, he was beaten by his younger son in front of his wife and eldest son. For Xia Yongxiang, this made him wish he could find someone. He crawled into the cracks in the ground and felt that his face had been wiped out by a slap from his youngest son. He was also shocked by his son's behavior at that time. He originally wanted to fight back, but for some reason, after seeing the look in his son's eyes, he flinched a little and had no way to fight back. Now that he thinks about it, he is full of regrets. So angry. Humph. I forgive him generously. Why didn't he think that I was his biological father when he beat him? Since ancient times, I have been beating my sons. How can a son beat me? I think Xia Tingzhou has a traitor in his body. He has been there since he was a child. He is disobedient and ignorant. He always has his own ideas about what to do or not to do. Just like Xia Yun, he makes trouble all day long. Now that he has made a career, he doesn't want to become a son-in-law to a rich man. If you find it embarrassing, you will show off at home. What's the point of beating my father? Why should he beat his father-in-law if he has the ability? After venting his anger, Xia Yongxiang was really angry. Thinking of his son's attitude and not taking him as a father seriously, Xia Yongxiang was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Dad, just think it's me begging you. Just calm down. Don't say it's you. My second brother was also very good to me in the past. Didn't I get beaten on impulse this time? Look at my stomach and my body still hurts. Compared to Xia Yongxiang, Xia Tingzhou's injuries were more serious, and his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, which was a bit unsightly. Xia Yongxiang glanced at his eldest son and felt that Xia Tingzhou was crazy. I think Xia Tingzhou is crazy. If it were in the past, no one would say anything if a child like this was beaten to death. Look at you, what kind of child did you give birth to? It doesn't matter if he doesn't look like me. He doesn't even know. A filial person, if he had known, he would have been strangled to death right after he was born. Mother Xia has long been accustomed to saying the most vicious words. This is the case in many families. They use the sharpest words to hurt the people closest to them. Their words are simply terrifying. Okay, don't be angry. Is it possible that he can still keep us here? Let's just reason and say that we shouldn't have treated Xiao Yao like that. In this case, Tingzhou will also apologize to you. Mother Xia said this, and then suddenly thought of something. By the way, boss, is your cell phone here? Give Xia Yun a call. Tingzhou is so angry. It would be nice if Xia Yun came and could give him some advice. The second child and the third child have always had a good relationship, so Mother Xia felt that she had found a good way. Kindness. Xia Tingyu nodded, then started to look for Xia Yun's phone number, and then called him without saying much. He just said that Xie Tingzhou was back and causing trouble at home, and asked Xie Yun to come and persuade him quickly. Xie Yun didn't say much, just that it was getting dark. Time passed like this minute by minute. The room was extremely quiet, and there were one child, two men, and one woman, which made it even more crowded. There was also no toilet. If I couldn't hold it in any longer, I could only find a bottle to solve it. But the smell in the air is still unacceptable. They didn't expect that being locked in a room would be so uncomfortable. Xie Tingzhou had already ordered food from a local hotel, and after it was delivered, he went to the warehouse over there and opened the door. Everyone inside the door looked at Xie Tingzhou excitedly, but found that Xie Tingzhou's expression was cold. "Mom, Dad, brother, I also heard from Xiao Yao that you didn't allow him to eat with you when you were eating. You asked him to stand aside and watch the punishment. Then you can come too. How Xiao Yao was treated by you before, you how to do it too." Xie Yongxiang originally thought that Xie Tingzhou was here to apologize to him, but he did not expect that his son would say such things. "You bastard! I shouldn't have given birth to you in the first place and let you do this to your father." He pointed at Xie Tingzhou, but Xie Tingzhou smiled gently and took out the Swiss Army knife from his pocket. This was the thing that the children wanted to play with before. They were afraid that they would hurt their hands, so they were left here with Xie Tingzhou. At this time, the Swiss Army knife, Xie Tingzhou took it and spun it around in his hand, leaving a silvery after image. "I advised my father not to point at me like this, otherwise I wouldn't know if the knife in my hand would hurt someone. After all, I am studying medicine. Dad has heard the news, right? A medical staff stabbed a person. More than a dozen stabs were made, but in the end it was judged to be a minor injury. With my technique, it would be no problem to stab him hundreds of times. I don't like to talk to these people about what they have and what they don't have. Sometimes the appropriate force value is enough to make these people accept everything in front of them. These people are used to bullying good and fearing evil, and they don't know how dirty their faces are." For a moment, Xie's father and Xie's mother looked ugly, and even Xie Tingyu didn't expect Xie Tingzhou to be so cruel. They didn't dare to bet on whether Xie Tingzhou would take action, because once he did, even if they sued each other in the end, the Liang family would definitely have a way to prevent them from suing. "Tingzhou, calm down. We are all obedient. I am looking at my parents. We promise that my parents have realized their mistake about Xiao Yao. Whatever Xiao Yao does, we will do the same. Don't worry." Xie Tingyu quickly smoothed things over, and then added Xie Qingping. The Xie family, his wife, and his eldest son and grandson all arrived in the hall. They were still 4 meters away from the restaurant and stood there neatly. They could just see Xie Tingzhou and his wife eating, but they could only stand watching. There was the same as when he was punishing Xie Yao. "Honey, this dish is good, you can try it." Xie Tingzhou served Liang Chejun some food, and Liang Chejun left. She turned her back to the Xie family, knowing that these people must hate them to death, but it didn't matter to her, as long as her husband was happy. Xie Yao was also eating meat. After taking a bite, he turned to look at his grandparents with a playful smile. "Grandpa and Grandma, you have to stand properly this time." As someone who was punished to stand before at home, Xie Yao didn't know what he did wrong, but now that adults are also punished to stand, Xie Yao didn't think there was a problem. The Xie family members watched Xie Tingzhou and Liang Chejun interact warmly with Xie Yao, and felt even more uncomfortable. Everyone looked terribly ugly, and Xie Qingping even cried because of the delicious food smell in the air. And was finally hugged by Xie Tingyu in embarrassment and covered his mouth. When Liang Chejun turned around and looked over, he felt terribly embarrassed, as if his face had been stepped on the ground. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 288. A woman like Liang Chejun is the noblest woman Xie Tingyu has ever seen in her life. She has short hair and always wears sharp professional suits. The high heels she wears are like stepping on people's hearts. She always has a special sense of oppression. Such a woman will give people a very strong feeling, and most men will stay away from such a woman and label such a woman a strong woman. In fact, it is because she is not worthy and does not dare to pursue it, so she has various labels for women. People are strong-willed at heart. If such a woman likes you, even women, not to mention men, will be moved by her. Xie Tingyu was jealous of Xie Tingzhou for this reason. When Xie Tingzhou was in school, it was fine that he was liked by the girls in the school. But in the end, he could meet such a top-notch white and rich girl. So what if he was his wife? Their family is so rich, no matter what they do, Xie Tingzhou can live the life they dream of. Let alone 50 years less of hard work. Even if someone works hard for 500 years, they may not be able to have tens of billions of assets. The most important thing is that Liang Chejun is good-looking, young, and very gentle to Xie Tingzhou, which makes Xie Tingyu even more jealous. At this time, seeing Liang Chejun turning his head with a disgusted look, Xie Tingyu felt his whole body stiffen, feeling indescribably uncomfortable in his heart. His face became ugly, and he covered his son's mouth fiercely to prevent his son from making any more noises. Sound. Xie's father and mother are not much better. They can run and resist, but what happens after the resistance? The Liang group is so big, how can they compete with such a behemoth? So they could only endure it and just stand there and watch it all. The more attentive Xie Tingzhou is to Liang Chejun, the more unforgivable he is in the eyes of Xie's father and Xie's mother. Xie's mother only felt that the son was born in vain. If she had a wife and forgot about her mother, wouldn't she be punishing Xie Yao? That kid is very naughty. Who hasn't been beaten as a child? Is this the way to go online now? Father Xie was even more disgusted with this good-looking son in his heart. He felt that his son was eating soft food and that he was clinging to a woman's skirt. However, there was a vague jealousy in his heart, consciously revealed from the bottom of the eyes. Xie Tingzhou didn't even have to do anything. He just helped Liang Chejun pick up the food, and the task was completed. Congratulations to the host for completing the task of showing affection in front of the Xie family. The task reward is a universal scar removal prescription. Please keep up the good work. The family's jealousy soon led to Xie Tingzhou's show of affection. Liang Chejun had not been so attentively served by her husband in many days, but thinking about what happened to his son this time, his husband was afraid that he would be stimulated, so he cooperated. Very. During the break of eating, Xie Yun came to the door. As soon as he entered the door, he saw 4 people standing in the hall. He raised his eyebrows immediately. His face was bruised and purple. It could be seen that it must be a recent wound, but Xie Yun seemed to be used to it. As soon as she turned her head, she saw her second brother and second sister-in-law, whom she had only seen once in almost 10 years, and walked over. At this moment, she directly saw Xie Yungxiang's beaten face and the embarrassed look of her elder brother, and a smile appeared in her eyes. Second brother and second sister-in-law, when did you come back? You didn't notify me. She walked over, and the scars on her face made Xie Tingzhou frown. Even Liang Chejun didn't expect that her husband's only sister had wounds on her face, and she didn't know what happened. When Xie Yao saw this aunt's face was bruised and purple, she stretched out her little hand and acted childishly. Auntie, are you injured on your face? I have medicine, do you want it? His voice was sweet, which made Xie Yun look at the child, thinking that it might be one of the twins of the second brother. Looking at this face that looked very similar to the second brother when he was a child, Xie Yun laughed. It's injured, but you have to call me auntie. I've already given you medicine. She answered the innocent child, and then turned to look at her second brother, whom she had not seen for a long time. In fact, this family is so strange. As parents, the Xie family prefers Xie Tingyu, who looks more similar to them, and they are dissatisfied with the outstanding and beautiful Xie. No matter how you like him, plus he favors boys over girls, he naturally disdains the ordinary Xie. Xie was at the bottom of the family before. Xie so-called second brother and younger sister have a good relationship. In fact, they are just two children who do not receive the attention of their parents. They join each other to keep each other warm. When Xie saw Xie look, he remembered the ending of the sister in his memory. Xie had a relatively good relationship with him, and he had been studying hard and went to college. At that time, Xie parents asked Xie to drop out of school, but Xie, the elder brother, paid the tuition. Unfortunately, it was useless after he went to school. As soon as she returned home, she didn't even have time to find a job, so she was knocked out by Xie's parents and sent to the home of a man who was 10 years older than her. She married him under the pretense of being married to Xie in exchange for 300,000 yuan. The bride price also includes a car worth 200,000 yuan. Xie was in Shangjing City at the time and was out of reach, so after the incident happened it was already irreversible. In addition, he and his sister were just friends for face, so they never contacted her again. Did the man hit you with the injury on your face? Xie asked, but Xie laughed sarcastically. Second brother, now you know how to care about people? That man couldn't do it himself, so he insisted on beating me. He has been beating me for so many years. I have escaped several times before. My parents helped call the police, saying it was a household matter, so the police brought me back, and you can see the marks on my wrists from being tied up, and my parents also helped the man beat me. Talking about his life casually, he has been stuck in a quagmire and fallen into dust since his graduation at the age of 23 to now. The whole 10 years, the best 10 years, have been in the mud pit. She tried hard to escape from all this, but was eventually dragged back into the pit of fire by her parents. Xie didn't know what to say for a moment. There were quite a lot of immoral things done by the original owner and the immoral things of the Xie family. It's boring not to talk about these things. Just now I saw that dad and eldest brother had injuries on their faces. Did you hit the second brother? She asked casually, with a smile on her face, as if she didn't want to stand up for the Xie family, but instead wanted to come here to gloat. Well, I beat them. They did something wrong, so of course I want to beat them. Xie gave an answer, but Xie sat down. Then we should beat our mother by the way. My mother is very kind to you and my eldest brother, but it's different for me. 3 years ago, she caught me from another place and burned me with cigarette butts, saying that I was unruly. The woman said, I wish they were dead. Such vicious words were so commonplace that Liang Chujun was stunned. Although she had been married to her husband for so many years, her husband had been living in Shangjing City because he was his wife's wife. Liang Chujun only knew the name of the people in his hometown and didn't know it at all. What happened? When I heard this young woman, who was about the same age as me, say those hurtful words so calmly, I felt inexplicably uncomfortable. Why didn't you tell me this? Xie asked this, knowing that it was too late and knowing that the original owner would not help even if he knew all this. In Xie memory, the sister named Xie was beaten to death by the man's mother. Then the man issued a letter of understanding, and even Xie's parents also issued a letter of understanding. The passing of a life was so casual, as if not worth mentioning at all. You never called me. Xie gave a clear olive branch, meaning that he wanted to take care of this matter. It's just that Xie had already lowered his head to eat. When he raised his head after hearing these words, the scars on his face seemed to be ironic. Of course they didn't want me to contact you. You paid for my college tuition at that time. They were afraid that you would help me, so they secretly hid my mobile phone. I didn't touch my mobile phone for 5 years after I arrived at that man's house. Later, I had the opportunity to contact you, but you changed your number and all contact methods no longer work. I begged them to tell me, but my parents said I was embarrassed and said that you married a rich woman. People like me, poor relatives, look at it. No, second brother, you haven't been back home for so many years, isn't that what I thought? I shouldn't have come back after graduating from college, I should have stayed outside like you. Xiaoyun said, as if she had become accustomed to the pain for so many years. It's not that she had never run before, but how could she run? The family looked at her closely, sometimes to the point of not letting her wear clothes at home. Xiaoyun's craziest escape was when he rushed out without any clothes on, but was sent back by the Xia family in the end. The back and forth escapes resulted in more vicious beatings and curses. Xiaoyun has not given birth to children in these years. It is not that she cannot give birth to children, but because the man is not good at it, so naturally he cannot give birth to children. Xia Tingzhou was dumbfounded, knowing that he had arrived too late and that nothing could be done and could not be undone. He just looked at Xiaoyun's plain appearance and felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. Finding that the table was silent, Xiaoyun looked up, and then found the second sister-in-law next to him looking at him sympathetically, and he immediately laughed. Second sister-in-law, don't look at me like this. My second brother is the same as me. My parents didn't let me go to college and didn't pay the tuition fees. My second brother had to take out a loan to go to school. Later, when I went to college, my second brother paid me the tuition fees have all been spent. I don't blame him, and I don't blame him. Everyone has their own difficulties. My second brother's life must not have been so comfortable when he married into your family. I haven't seen him for so many years, so I am. Tell me, no one listens to what I say, and people outside call me crazy. This is how the Xia family went out to publicize, saying that Xiaoyun was a lunatic, so her husband kept her at home. In addition, Xiaoyun ran away several times, so there was a lot of gossip outside. Liang Chejun felt uncomfortable when he heard such words. He stretched out his hand and stroked Xiaoyun's hair behind his ears, speaking in a gentle voice. You're not crazy, I know that. She suddenly choked up. You just suffered too much. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 289. As a woman, Liang Chejun naturally knows the oppression of women in this world. Women at the bottom will be oppressed physically, like Xiaoyun who was sold by her parents for money, as if Xiaoyun's personal ability is useless, just because she is a woman, she can be sold by the Xia family as a matter of course. Liang Chejun was born in Rome in this world. She is the only daughter in the family. Her parents love her and the family has countless wealth. But even so, Liang Chejun, as a girl, will encounter various difficulties on the road to study and on the road to business. Teachers always praise boys for their good physique, faster brains, and more suitable for studying science, but in fact, there are many women among some scholars who have left their names in history. In the business world, everyone clinks glasses, they deliberately pour wine for women, and then tell some dirty jokes that are not presentable, hitting a person physically. Liang Chejun has experienced a lot. She has learned to become a steel-like existence, indifferent to the words of those greasy CEOs, and even mock them back. If a woman wants to make a difference in this world, a poor woman must leave her family and stay away from the slavery of marriage, while a wealthy woman needs to turn herself into a man. Liang Chejun regretted why she had not asked about her husband's family. It was not until so many years that she knew about it. Looking at the girl in front of her who had suffered so much and had become accustomed to suffering, Liang Chejun held Xiaoyun's hand, her voice sincere and persistent. You have suffered too much. It's not your fault, it's someone else's fault. She said this, and then added. This time I came back with Ting Zhou to bring Xiao Ao home. Your name is Xie Yun, right? If your life is full of suffering now, I can help you, whether it's divorce or something else, I can help you. I can help you get out of the Xie family, help you go to Shangjing City, help you find a job, and help you gain a foothold. Xie Yun, you are not a lunatic, you are just a woman. A woman oppressed by her parents, a poor homosexual. Xie Yun was stunned. Looking at the woman with good temperament and strong aura in front of him, he admitted that he had a heartbeat for a moment, but he quickly covered it up with a smile and pulled back his hand. No need. Even if I run to the ends of the earth, my parents will find me. Even if I find a job at that time, they will still make trouble. Isn't it more embarrassing? I have also thought about it. After all, I am young. There will always be a day when I can outlast them. Anyway, who is afraid of who? The worst thing is to die together. She is now beating each other with her husband. Although the wounds on her face are terrible, the man is also injured. Xie Yun has never been the kind of person who allows others to bully her. She is full of rebelliousness. Even if she falls into such a prison-like marriage for 10 years, she is still as crazy as ever. She started eating again, and then praised the food for being delicious. The Xie family and Xie Tingyu behind him heard Xie Yun's voice. They didn't expect Xie Yun to be so shameless. Didn't he know that family disgrace should not be made public? What is there to tell outsiders about these things? What's the use of telling others? At most, others will look down on her and feel ashamed. This woman is like this when she gets married. How can she not be beaten? Xie's father and mother looked ugly and felt that they had lost face, but they did not dare to come forward because of Xie Tinghu's intimidation. Xie Tinghu did not expect that his sister would say such words to his brother whom he had not seen for a long time. She was crazy, she was really crazy. Does this woman still have shame? But Xie Tingzhou looked at Xie Yun like this and spoke. What your sister-in-law said is true. Whether you want to divorce or leave the Xie family, your sister-in-law and I support you and help you. Have dinner. After dinner, I will go to your house with you to meet your husband. Doesn't he like to beat his wife? I think I also like to beat my brother-in-law. For such a grudge, divorce is nothing. Xie Tingzhou feels that he likes to solve this matter quickly. He wants his sister to suffer and others to suffer. That is called revenge. Xie Yun raised his head from the food and looked at his second brother in disbelief, as if he was meeting him for the first time. Although they had been together for warmth when they were young, Xie Yun felt that there was still a distance between him and his brother after he grew up. Later, Xie Tingzhou paid for her tuition, and Xie Yun was very grateful. However, the more painful things happened later. Xie Yun realized that she and Xie Tingzhou were still different. Xie Tingzhou at least looked good, was liked and respected by others, and got married well. But she could only be sold by her parents like a commodity for her eldest brother. Thinking of this, Xie Yun suddenly laughed and said, "Brother, do you still remember? You got a scholarship of 2,000 yuan in your first semester of junior high school, and you were planning to buy a cell phone. But in one night, your parents searched your room and took away the 2,000 yuan. They also took away the money we saved during the holidays. Later, there were several times when you didn't take out the scholarship, and they beat you until your face was blue, worse than I am now. At that time, I thought it was a good thing that they didn't beat me. Now it seems that you, brother, suffered in your early years, but now you are enjoying life. Unlike me, I was married to a useless old man, and I couldn't run away even if I wanted to. My parents had to help them beat me, because every time they caught me, they gave me tens of thousands of yuan. Isn't it funny?" She was probably really stimulated, and she was indeed slightly crazy when she spoke, but Xie Tingzhou knew that she was just a girl who had gone through hardships. The former owner and her sister joined a group to keep warm, and both of them were rejected by the Xie family's parents. Being like each other, beating and cursing is the norm in the family. Only Xie Tingyu can get the smiles and tenderness of Xie's parents. Xie Yun, I didn't know it before, but I know it now, and I will help you. Xie Tingzhou made a promise, and Liang Chujun nodded. Even the little baby Xie Yao, who was not too sensible and didn't know what was going on, reached out to touch the second aunt's hand. Don't be afraid, aunt, my dad is Ultraman. He will definitely help you fight off the bad guys. His appearance made Xie Yun smile a bit. She still liked children very much. Second brother, if you really help me, then I will beat them, just like they beat me before. As soon as these words came out, the three adults standing in the living room all had stiff faces. They did not expect that Xie Yun would say such horrible words. When they thought that they had been beaten by Xie Tingzhou today, and if they were beaten by a woman again, the three of them looked ugly. No problem. They just told me that you got married and didn't say anything about what happened after you got married. Xie Yun, I am your second brother at any time. Just like the tuition fees, you can tell me. After Xie Tingzhou finished talking to his sister, he looked at the three adults and a child standing there first. I advise you to stay still and don't leave here, otherwise you will never be able to enter this house again. Such a threat seems to be even more painful to be beaten. After all, this is a very good house, with a good location and a high price. Now it costs more than 5 million to buy it. It is impossible for the Xie family to make so much money in their lifetime. The three of them couldn't move with their heels on the ground. Xie Tingzhou stood up and told his wife to take their son back to rest first. When Liang Chujun saw that her husband was handling the housework, she took Xie Yao outside first, and they booked a room in the hotel outside. Liang Chujun believed that her husband could handle all this. After Liang Chujun left, Xie Tingzhou and Xie Yun, brother and sister, looked at the Xie family couple who had caused them pain since childhood. Second brother, is your name on the property certificate of the house here? Otherwise, they can't be so afraid. What Xie Yun said now was very straightforward, and these words made the Xie family and his wife look even more ugly. Well, but I didn't expect that they would dare to do this to you. This sister had suffered 10 years and her mental state was not very good. Xie Tingzhou planned to take her back to Shangjing City for treatment and arrange a new life for her. What wouldn't they dare to do for Big Brother? Xie Yun asked back, making Xie Tingyu look extremely ugly. When the two people came over, the Xie family couple felt even more uncomfortable when they thought about what they said. Xie Yun, I have not lacked food and drink for you since you were a child, and people graduated from junior high school and high school early and went out to work to support their families. I even let you go to college. Do you think you will not get married when you go to college? I found it for you. Why aren't you from a good family? How much money can you make after going to college and finding a job? It's better to marry a good man and enjoy a happy life. I'm doing this all for your own good. The biggest lie in the world, I'm doing this all for your own good. Then why don't you marry him? He is only a few years younger than you. We will still be able to love each other as siblings. Mom, you treat me well and enjoy happiness. Why don't you divorce your father and go? What about marrying that domestically violent man? Xie Yun didn't give Xie's mother face, and Xie's father also had a cold face. Xie Yun, why are you talking to your mother? Are you sensible? Do you still look like a girl? Which girl dares to talk back to her parents? This is what men do by tightly framing women in a frame and requiring them to be gentle, sensible, and submissive. Xie Tingzhou sneered. With parents like you, let alone her talking back, you all deserve to be beaten. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Xie Yun beside him. Second brother is here today. Just take action. They don't dare to resist. It's okay if they resist. Parents, eldest brother, if you sue me and my sister for this matter, then I have ways to deal with you. Although the Liang family is not in our hometown, but there is still a way to make you homeless from now on. The faces of the three Xie family members became even more ugly, but when they looked into Xie Yun's eyes, they felt a different kind of joy. Seeing that Xie Yun didn't know what to do, Xie Tingzhou slapped him with a loud slap on Xie Tingyu's face, knocking out one of Xie Tingyu's teeth. Sister, look, if you beat them like this, if they bully you, you should bully them back ruthlessly, you know. Good man, he has a golden finger. Author, Zhanghu Buletin Jian. Chapter 290. Xie Tingzhou is a member of the Time Travel Department. He has never paid much attention to the strange operations of the other party abusing my body and me abusing the other party's soul. I was lucky enough to get to know some ancient departments, which are rich in female abuse literature. Obviously the heroine's parents were killed by the hero, but the heroine still fell in love with the hero. She was abused, miscarried, beaten, imprisoned, and even insulted by others. Then the heroine did not resist the abuse and came back to kill the hero. The whole family actually loved the male protagonist sincerely, and then died for him. The last sentence, "Do I want him to live with his love and guilt for me forever? Oh my God." At that time, Xie Tingzhou felt that something was wrong. You died and others lived well. You had been abused in various ways before, but the final revenge was to make others fall in love with you. Even if you die to save others, how about they live well? When the time comes, I will marry a wife and have 3 or 5 children, and I will have forgotten you long ago, okay? Anyway, after getting to know the ancient department, Xie Tingzhou deeply believed that this kind of woman was a source of great resentment. Therefore, when facing his sister Xie Yun who had suffered so much, his reaction was not to express gratitude, forgiveness, or hatred. Revenge, to be blunt, just take revenge for all the grievances you have suffered before. Xie Yun looked at the second brother in front of him with a complicated expression. After receiving Xie Tingzhou's affirmative support, the next moment he rushed directly to Xie's mother, one of the 3 people she hated most in her life. Xie's mother didn't expect that Xie Yun would dare to attack her. Before she could react, Xie Yun grabbed her hair. A woman's instinctive weapon is to pull her hair and scratch her face. When Xie's mother reacted, she quickly hit her back. She thought he went to grab Xie Yun's hair, but was grabbed directly by Xie Tingzhou. There was a click, and Mother Xie screamed like a pig. It really hurt. Xie Tingzhou directly removed Xie's mother's arm, letting Xie's mother's arm hang down, and could only let Xie Yun pull and beat it. Ouch! Xie's mother's eyes were filled with tears. She couldn't lift her right arm. The pain was terrible. Her left arm was useless and could not prevent Xie Yun's movements. Xie Yun used to fight with domestic violence men at home. In the past, she was beaten a lot, but now, it's okay to hit 2 or 3 men, let alone one domestic violence man, so she directly aimed at Xie's mother's face. He grabbed it with his long nails, leaving several bloody scratches on Xie's mother's face, which made Xie's mother howl even more. You scream. You cry. You did this to me before. I'm just returning it now. Xie Yun had a crazy smile on his face at this time. 10 years of abuse had actually had an impact on Xie Yun's spirit. At this time, he was using so much force in his hands that he even pulled out a lot of Xie's mother's hair. Xie Yun, don't be like this. Mom really does it for your own good. How could you hit me? Old man, why don't you help me quickly? Xie's mother made a cry for help. After all, it really hurt. Her arms hurt, her face hurt, and she was slapped in the face several times by Xie Yun. She knew the pain and shame she felt when her husband was slapped in the face before. It almost made Xie's mother want to crawl into the ground. Father Xie didn't dare to move. He was a little angry at first and wanted to help, but when he saw his wife's arm being removed, who dared to move? Even Xie Tingyu, who was slapped, was stunned. He didn't know how things turned out like this. Everything was fine before, but why did everything become different after Xie Tingzhou suddenly came back? And my sister, who was so obedient before, why does she act like a psycho now? At this moment, Xie Tingyu forgot that when they wanted to take Xie Yun home, they told the outside world that Xie Yun was a madman. Isn't it normal for a madman to do some crazy things now? The only child on the side, Xie Qingping, was already crying, scared to death by the scene in front of him, but Xie Tingzhou just wanted to let the other party watch, see such a brutal scene, and see his backer completely defeated. Only in this way can Xie Tingzhou not become even more angry after thinking of the pain Xie Yao suffered. Thinking of Xie Yun and Xie Yao, Xie Tingzhou suddenly felt that the one-word name seemed a bit bad. When he went back to change his name, it seems that I should change it again for my son, and my sister can also change it. Xie's mother was beaten so hard by Xie Yun that she had no ability to fight back. At this time, she could only hold her head and cry, and then ask for help from Xie's father. Father Xie, who had always been like heaven in the Xie family, now faced his wife's call for help. But he was indifferent, and when he saw the crazy Xie Yun, there was fear in his eyes, and finally he even spoke. Xie Yun, it's not my idea to get you married. It's your mother's idea. Your mother said she was afraid that you would go to school too much like your second brother and disobey and not come home. She felt that this woman the child should find a man to marry in order to live a good life, so I waited for you to come back and forced you to get married. I have no intention of getting you married. Dad has always cared about you in his heart. I have known you all these years. It's not an easy life, but girls are like this. The married person throws away the water, and your dad and I can't do anything about it. Xie's father said such high-sounding words, which made Xie's mother feel cold after hearing it. When she thought of all the things she had done for her husband in her life, she treated her excellent second son badly to please her husband, and even sold her eldest son's marriage. Young daughter. Yes, Xie's mother knew it, and she sold Xie Yun herself. Do you think that as a woman, Mother Xie doesn't know what marriage means to a woman? However, Xie's mother still became interested after learning that the man had given her a gift of 300,000 yuan and a car worth 200,000 yuan. She then wanted to sell her daughter. As long as she sold her daughter and got the money, her husband would be happy. The eldest son can also get married, killing two birds with one stone. After all, for Xie's mother, a married daughter throws away water, so Xie's mother does it as a matter of course. Besides, she feels that although that family is older than her daughter, the older man will love her daughter and can make so much money. I will definitely have money to spend when my daughter gets married. So this is a win-win situation. But Xie's mother didn't expect that everything she had carefully planned was for her husband and son, but now it was all pushed to her. Her face was burning with pain, her arms were in terrible pain, and her hair was also in severe pain. At this moment, Xie's mother finally started crying with red eyes, the kind of howling. She didn't cry because she was beaten by Xie Yun, but because her husband had wiped out all the things she had done over the years. It was ironic. When Xie Yun heard his father's words, he only felt that such a man was a high-sounding one, and sneered directly. Don't worry, I won't let you go. Once I deal with this woman, I will deal with you. With my second brother supporting me, I dare to do anything. After she said this, she looked at Xie Tingyu aside with a smile. You men are really terrible. When you do these things, you let women come forward to force you, as if you had no choice but to do it. But in the end, all the money you got went to your hands. After you sold me, the 300,000 yuan was pawned by your elder brother. The bride price, and a car worth 200,000 yuan. Every time you catch me, that beast will give you 50,000 yuan. How much money can my mother spend? Isn't it all spent by you? It's useless what you say, I won't let you go, I'm not stupid, I know who is the culprit in this family. After Xie Yun finished speaking, he looked at Xie's father with eyes full of resentment, and then mentioned Xie Tingzhou. Do you know why the second brother is on my side? Because you are too biased. When we were young, the three best people among us were the second brother, but you just wanted to steal the second brother's scholarship to support the eldest brother. You don't want to forget about being neat and tidy, it's nice to take the eldest brother to nibble on the second brother. Don't think that others don't know what you do. In the past, the second brother was good looking and many people gave him gifts. You secretly went to the second brother every day. Do you think my second brother and I didn't know about stealing things in the room? You thieves are simply vampires. These words were almost scolded on behalf of the original owner. Looking at it, Xie Tingzhou felt that it was normal for the original owner to become such a ruthless person. Growing up in such a deformed family, who could be sunny and cheerful? Xie's father looked ugly, but Xie Yun did not let go of Xie's mother. He saw the sweater needles on the table where Xie's mother was knitting a scarf, and then went directly to get it, and then pointed it at his mother. Mom, when I ran away before, the police sent me back. You called me a lunatic, and then secretly burned me with my father's cigarette butts, then pinched me around my waist and pricked me with needles. I'm doing the same thing today. And give it back to you so that you can also enjoy this taste. Along with Xie Yun's words, the sweater needle pierced it, causing Xie's mother to scream. It was simply terrible, but how could such pain be compared to Xie Yun's pain? Xie's mother regretted it. She cried and begged Xie Yun for forgiveness, but Xie Yun looked even crazier and kept moving her hands. After being crazy for a while, she looked at Xie's father with the sweater needle. Father Xie was trembling all over when he saw it. He wanted to retreat but it was useless. When Xie Yun rushed up, he had already been controlled by Xie Tingzhou, and then he was slapped wildly by Xie Yun. He slapped Xie Yun's hand hundreds of times. It started to hurt, but the smile on her face was so wild. Dad, does it hurt? Let me tell you, I have lived like this for the past 10 years. Does it feel bad to be beaten? But when I hit you, it feels very good. I must be really crazy. It's okay. You'll call the police later and ask the police to arrest me. I know you gave me a mental illness certificate. I want to remind you that people who commit mental illness do not need to go to jail. As she spoke, she stabbed Father Xie ferociously with a sweater needle, not wanting to let go of the culprit.